Chapter 2. The First Among Equals. Wind whipped across a nowhere world. It was cold. It was desolate. A poor place to be kept waiting, Fabius Bile decided. He bore it stoically. Even he must bide his time occasionally. Let the galaxy dub him Pater Mutatus, Manflayer, and Primogenitor. No matter the titles, no matter the power, no man was above inconvenience. The sin of hubris could take anyone, he thought, as it had taken those who had built the ancient webway gate he waited by. Allow himself to anger at this delay, to be convinced that he, the great Bile, should be above the vagaries of fate, and he was halfway lost already. That could not be allowed to happen. He still had much to do. A woman stood off to Bile's left, still too much in awe of her creator to stand right beside him. She looked alien. Black scutes covered her body. Sphericals lined her neck. Eyes large and protected by subsidiary lids. She was human, after a fashion. Further back, a small herd of beastmen clustered around the edge of the ancient plaza, not daring to set hoof upon the stones, muzzles steaming up the plastique of their ill-fitting breathing gear. Behind them was a tall stasis casket, already turning tawny with the wind-blown dust. The beastmen blankly watched the screens of the machines monitoring the gate, not truly understanding the tasks they had been given. They were nervous and fidgety out in the open after lifetimes in confines of void ships. Their leader, the mighty bull-headed Brutus, feared his followers might displease Bile, and lowered soft threats at them to be still. Bile paid the herd no attention, but leaned upon his rod, Torment, and scanned the horizon through violet eye lenses. The clone lord was helmed, the air being too impoverished of oxygen for even him to breathe. Beyond the broken plaza, the chill, caramel desolation of the desert stretched off in every direction. The cracked paving slabs hissed with hurrying skeins of sand, piling up small heaps around his boots that just as readily skittered away. The area was almost completely flat, featureless, the limits of sight smudged sky and desert together. A few dunes swelled on the horizon, but they were small and inconstant, sheets of sand wavering like flags in the weak sunlight from the razor's crest. The wind did not allow the dunes to grow tall. Material was ripped from them as quickly as it was piled at the top in uneasy equilibrium. Even as Bile watched, he could see them being born, growing, moving, dying. All things in the materium were made of dust, and returned to dust. In that there was a measure of balance, he supposed, more than anyone had the right to ask for in so volatile a universe. But it was a sorry state of being. This world had lived once. It did no longer, and chaos would not even leave dust if given its way. The Aldari Gate was the only feature of significance. At the center of a round platform, half buried in the sand, were spars, weathered gray, ancient wraithbone cracked to its marrow, like the jaws of the mythical Balines of old Earth, set up as monuments by their hunters. Sigils on the surface were eroded to ugly pockmarks, the few remaining gems abraded to dullness. Bile knew a thing or two about the webway, and in his considered opinion, this gate was decrepit to the point of uselessness. Maybe this trip is a fool's errand, he murmured, so softly no one but the woman heard. He could feel her looking at him. Patience, he told himself. To alter fate, one must understand one's place within it. He was proud of his achievements, rightly so, but without humility he risked disaster. He was a pebble suspended in the current time, yet he had pretensions to alter the flow, to be the basis of the dam that shifted the flood. He had to be focused if he were to achieve that. Bile's breath labored in his respirator mask. The leather of his man-skin coat slapped hard against his armored legs. He stared through the gate, waiting for the desert it framed to blur, to reveal another place. The gate evoked something he could not quite put his finger on. He felt peculiar, and it took him a moment to place the emotion. until with a smile he recognized it for nostalgia. There had been whole metropolises fashioned from Rathbone near Canticle City, and upon Urim, and on all the lost Adari worlds within the eye he had trodden in his long life. Distant days heady with successes and with failures. It seemed he had spent an eternity gazing through the frame of another's ruin. At the thought, he felt a delicious pang of regret. "They do you dishonor, father," the woman said. She had no need of breathing gear. Her engineered respiratory system wrung every drop of sustenance from the air. The secondary membranes protected her eyes. The shiny armored scutes that covered her head to foot suffered no ill effects from the cutting sand. "They make you wait." I am not a petty potent who must be fawned over, Porter," Bile said. His voice was rendered hard and humorless by his voxmeter. "The webway is a difficult realm to navigate. Maybe this Columbari Enos lacks the mastery he boasts of." The Eldari lay claim to much of the network still. Large parts of it were contaminated by the warp when the rift opened. They may find their route blocked. They could be delayed. They might not arrive at all. What does it matter? I will not rail against these impositions on my time. That is the mistake of the Abaddons, Luciuses, and Eidolons. I am 10,000 years old, my child, and we have waited 5 years for notice of our target. What is a few hours more? "It is nothing, my maker," Porter said. She dipped her head ashamed. I apologize. It angers me to see you disrespected." Porter, they will come," said Bile. "If they do not, then a pity. But there are other eyes and ears which can serve us. We must simply wait to see which path we will take next. Is it such a chore to watch the gate? It is peaceful here." One of Bile's beasts bleated behind them. "Master, what do you speak of?" The words were grunted, mangled by an inhumane mouth. Hoofed feet stomped. The question was followed by an angry low and hard smack from Brutus. "Silence! Maker's words, not for you, lowborn," Brutus scolded. "They are nervous, my maker," said Porter. "Let them fuss. They are beasts. Let them behave as beasts. They are too insignificant to annoy me." In fact, they were so insignificant, Bile would not have brought them at all, but Brutus had insisted. A show of strength, Brutus had said in his thick-tongued way. Bile had laughed in the creature's face at the suggestion. He had once commanded tens of thousands of legiones Astartes. He had created the new men. A few goat-headed mutants were a feeble display of power in his estimation. Still, Brutus had a point. He was a lord still, and a lord must have an entourage. He had let the Minotaur have his way. But Porter, Porter, she was another proposition entirely. She was powerful, gloriously so. How long before she dared stand beside him? How long after that in front of him? And how long before she turned on him? Children always turn on their parents. The young devour the old. That was how evolution progressed. Death at her hands was to be welcomed as a measure of his success. She was so much more elegant than the gland-hounds of old, so much better. Her coming to him had revitalized his enthusiasm for life. He was proud of his new men, and if they must kill him to realize their destiny, then so be it. For now Porter was his protector, and far more dangerous than any number of beastmen. She was the opposite of a show of strength, for she looked like nothing. That was good. Bile preferred a hidden dagger. He lapsed into thought for a while, and found his memories going back further than Urim, back beyond the heresy, back to the beginning. There was a buzz in his head, a hard electric vibration. He started in his armor, though a jerk of his hand as the muscle bunders reacted, was the only sign to the others. He remembered something truly ancient. None of the rest noticed, but Porter saw. Clever Porter. Master, I find myself in a thoughtful frame of mind, he said abruptly. The sound of his voice made one of the beastmen gurgle with fear. I have a moment to think for once. My maker? Asked Porter. Bile turned halfway round to regard her. Sand ground the joints of his armor. It would take hours to get rid of it all. Doubtless, its machine spirit would complain. He refused to let the thoughts upset his calm. Time for contemplation, without the distractions of my vocation. He lifted a hand, and the spidery Shurgan device bonded to his back moved one of its tiny limbs mimetically. Destiny is a harsh mistress. Great men like myself rarely take time for stillness. We must have it forced upon us by circumstance, you see. Yes, my maker, she paused. If I may, of what do you think? The wind blew on, curling up high streets of sand from the desert that belayed and collapsed, the phantom sails of ghostly ships. This truly is a desolate place, he said, the same as untold millions of barren worlds, and yet it reminds me of something. Words that were more bleat than speech interrupted his musing. Master, one of the beastmen said, cringing in anticipation of Brutus's massive fist. They come. Bile's half-formed memory evaporated. You are certain? I see nothing, Bile said. He turned to the pitiful huddle of his acolytes. Yes, master, the beastman said, watery eyes staring down at a display. He wiped it clear of dust with a hairy arm. Much energy builds. Something approaches. The gate, Porter said. Bile turned back. The words in the psychoplastic shone with light, making them appear raw. Arcs of power played over the spars. Well, it does work. Ready yourselves, said Bile. Do not attack unless I say. Is that clear? Porter, are you prepared? I am, my maker, she said. She was now ready to kill, though her posture barely seemed to change. The gems shone. One of them exploded into stinging shards that made the beastman wail. A golden crack appeared in the arm in the center of the gate. Ordinarily, these apertures took forms of perfect symmetry and grew according to strict, pleasing ratios. This one was a tear, bleeding light, jagged as a crack in a mirror. The glare was great enough to exceed the capacity of Bile's photoreceptive lenses. He raised the hand holding torment to shield his eyes. Reality cried out as it was forced wide. Harsh blue sparks raced around the floor, blackening the sand, and the noise increased, culminating in a great bang as the gate was forced. The weird luminescence of the webway flooded the desert. A group of figures stepped through. Bile had crafted his fair share of monsters, but this group surpassed his talent for the grotesque. Against the glare of violated webway, they were silhouettes comprised entirely of spikes and gun barrels, punctuated by glints of bone and the sickly glow of lenses and ready lights. They were a collection of flesh, metal, and black robes that were hard to tease into individuals until the light suddenly ceased. The gate shut with a pained moan. Bile let his hand drop. Before him were two adepts of the machine cult. The first was not particularly notable in any way. A slight figure in black robes, the blunt snout of what was either a respirator mask or a bonded prosthetic poking out from his raised hood. His metal hands were crossed at the belt. The second was a female. not as heavily augmented, human enough still to require breathing gear and goggles, but blessed with mechanical hands and legs. They looked like a million other machine priests, and could easily have been loyal to Mars, if the iconography embroidered into their robes had not proclaimed their true allegiance. The massive shadows backing them split into a bodyguard of 5 heavily armed cybernetic constructs. Their assorted weapons trained unapologetically on Bile and his entourage. Bile suspected Ogren origins. He heard Porter's breathing quicken at the threat they represented, and raised the little finger of the hand holding Torment. "Be still," he hissed. She was frightened. He could smell it. Almost certainly not frightened for herself. The new men did not think that way. But for him, Bile himself did not recall what it was to be afraid. The constructs might prove a little challenging, but he could best them in combat. He was a space marine, and had never lost his warrior's instincts. That was before one factored Porter into the equation. No, there was no threat here to him whatsoever. Another pointless display. "Query formation. You are Fabius Bile, the Clone Lord," the first Magos said. Its voice was an androgynous rasp, cut through with machine noise and a disturbing susurrus of whispers. The voice and the machine sounds were attenuated by the thin air, but the whispers bypassed the party's ears and sounded into their minds. The beastmen bleated. Brutus growled them back into silence. "Who else would I be?" Bile responded. His hand shifted around Torment. He suppressed the urge to make use of the rod. The figure lifted a hand and raised a single mechanical digit, as if lecturing him, but instead gave an apology. "Social mollification protocols engaged. Forgive me, Fabius Bile is not a singular entity. I must know that I deal with the original, the man himself, and not one of his many clones." "If I was to tell you that I am he, the originus Fabius Bile, how would you prove it?" Bile asked. "You must be aware of my manner of survival." "I shall know you by the rod you bear," said the Magos. "This," Fabius raised Torment, "this can be copied. It can be stolen. Columbari enas, reasoning is not flawed," said the female priest, speaking for the first time. She sounded human compared to her companion. "Agreement given. Fashioning such an artifact is difficult," said the Magos. "The spiritual resonance given off by the demon that once held it is singular, and cannot be replicated. Nor can its own dark spirit, and nor can its link with your own soul. It is this that shall determine your authenticity." Bile laughed. "What is the soul but animus vitae of the warp? It is no more spiritual in nature than the coursing of electricity through my warplate. I have as many souls as I have bodies." Disagreement postulated. "Not so. Verification in this matter will satisfy me, and I shall lead you to your goal, whether you believe yourself to be you or not. Summation given. Condition of our partnership dependent on action. Hand the rod to me. It shall be measured, and you will be judged wanting or not." The Magos extended his mechanical hand, palm open. "Very well," Bile said. He tossed Torment forward, then caught the head and reversed it, so the ferrule pointed towards the Magos. "Master," Porter warned, "you give up your rod of command." He waved her concerns away. "I have nothing to fear from the likes of them," he said. "Do not be so sure," said the female priest. She was examining Porter closely. The Magos took the demon weapon carefully, bowing his head in respect. One of his followers lumbered forward. A bare skull emerged from a fold in his chest and lifted up, exposing an orifice surrounded by pulsing folds of plastique that wept black slime. The Magos thrust Torment into the body. The servitor swallowed it whole. Forgive this test, Clone Lord. You might believe yourself to be the progenitor Bile, but I hear that the clones of Bile are so perfectly made, so close to their master in thought and form, that they are easily mistaken, and often think that they are him, said the Magos. How do you know you are not one of them? Asked the female. Think of it as an article of faith with me, said Bile. Your kind understands faith, no? The quintessence of our existence is faith, Lord Bile. Faith in the machine god. A philosophical standpoint. So perhaps our views are not so far divided. Good, good. The male Magos nodded to himself. I confess myself surprised. I expected more proof required from a seeker of truth like yourself. The giant servitor let out a groan. It appeared to be a signal of affirmation, for the Magos nodded again and reached out his hand. The cyborg moaned a second time and extruded the rod from a different cavity lower down his chest. Torment emerged dripping with ichor. The Magos took it and weighed it thoughtfully in both hands. This is indeed the rod of torment. Ergo, you are indeed Fabius Bile. The Magos handed it back. Bile regarded the coating with displeasure and flicked it free of slime. Ontology bores me. I am here to see if you can give me what I require. Yes, yes, the Magos let out a series of rising beeps. It is a great pleasure and honor to meet with you. The Magos bowed quite extravagantly. I am the Demonomagos, Columbari Enos, the first among equals, guide and master of the Magiriastral collective known as the Disciples of Null. This is my fellow seeker of the truth, Alexia Dios, second of our order, and my bondmate. This is very impressive, I am sure, said Bile. You can tell me all about it, so long as you have the information. I am becoming bored of this exchange. I was just telling my acolyte here how patient I am. I fear I have misjudged myself. The disciples are foremost among the true Mechanicum. We have this information, said Alexia Dios. Encouragement extended, so shall you, if the reward remains as promised, said first among equals. I find myself with somewhat reduced means, as you can see by the quality of my assistance, said Bile, waving the beslimed rod at the beastman. But when it comes to knowledge, I have a treasure house still, and a few items of worth. In that stasis casket is what you seek. Show me, said first among equals. His tone of yearning was so sharp, his construct bodyguards raised their weapons again, provoking a similar response from Bile's beast tribe. Porter looked at her master. Bile raised his hand, and she tensed, ready to act. Information first, Magos. Tell me where I can find the Archmagos Belisarius Cawl. He has something I would very much like for myself, as much as you want what is in this casket. The metallic click of false eyelids surrounded from the shadows of Columbari Enos's hood. Gleaming red eyes appeared and vanished. I am amenable to taking the risk of going first in the exchange, said Columbari Enos, inclining his head. There was something of the insect about him. We can tell you not only where Cawl is, but where he is going to be. Which is, said Bile. Theatrics were for him to perform. He tired of them in others. In 3 weeks' time he shall be at a system named Avernes, in the far east of the Ultima Segmentum, close to the borders of Ultramar, said Alexia Dios. It has taken months of effort on my part to secure this information. It is accurate. Eagerness expressed. There you shall seize him, and take everything he has. For the disciples of Null shall aid you, said Columbari Enos. You will give me the coordinates? Is that what I have come all this way for? What a waste of my time. No waste, great Genitor. I shall do better than coordinates alone, said the Magos. Alexia Dios and I shall take you there ourselves. A better bargain, but still insufficient, said Bile. He will be well protected. Vesalius will stand no chance against Cawl's Arch Mechanicus. It will take time to gather the forces I shall need, and by that time Cawl will be gone. Your information is worthless to me, which is why I shall also provide aid from the disciples of Null, and an army from the Lord of Gordrenvel. Dandy must rule. Should I be impressed? I have never heard of him. He is the Lord of Space Marines, and Columbari Enos made an exciting buzzed sound. And more besides, he owes me much. He will provide additional forces. It is not only his location we offer, said Bile. It is not only his location we offer, Lord Bile, said Alexia Dios, but also an opportunity. This place where they meet is an ancient webway nexus from the days before the Age of Strife. We are experts in manipulation of this realm. We will be able to attack them in complete surprise. You are assured success. I have heard that before, said Bile. I have been disappointed often, you know. I had never heard of either of you. But no. He tapped Torment's skull into his palm. Then I remembered a tech witch who served Horus in the days before, who had that name. Affirmative. She is our data saint. There's nothing original in all this sorry galaxy, is there? Said Bile. I thought her long departed from this life. She is dead and all her followers. She is our exemplar. By her example we live. From her 8 ancient disciples we draw inspiration. I see, Bile sighed. You're no one. Nobody's reliving a past you can't possibly understand. I find myself disappointed again. Porter, we are leaving. Columbari Enos bristled. His Merendians jerked at his offense. Exception. We are the disciples of Null, the servants of the... Yes, said Bile. He waved his hand dismissedly. Exhortation. Wait. Look. Lord Bile. Look at this planet. Its desolation. At your courtier of pathetic mutants. You are not in a good position. How long have you looked for a call? How many more chances will the servants of Abaddon give you to provide what he demands? You will not have another opportunity like this. Bile stopped. Do you really know where Cawl is? Affirmative, said Columbari Enos. And can this Thrul provide enough manpower to challenge Cawl's forces? He can, said Alexia Dios. Bile paused. I find myself with precious little to lose. I shall take you up on your offer. Fail me, however, and it shall go to the worse for you. Then you will show me the payment for my services? Asked Columbari Enos, making another excited blurt. I shall, said Bile. Open the sarcophagus. The beastman stepped aside from the casket. It opened. Within, arms crossed like an embalmed king of old, the glowing within the steady, changeless light of a stasis field, was a machine shaped like a human being, but far from human. Columbari Enos took several halting steps forward. Hands reached covetously. One of the ancient androids that plagued humanity. Bile gave a signal. The casket closed. Wait. Service first. Reward later. Columbari Enos inclined his head. Agreement. For this treasure, you shall have all you need and more.